And Jing shivered, her cheeks flushing red. She rubbed her face hard, trying to stop herself from thinking further, then swallowed and began telling Lu Zhongtong about their journey from Singapore to Malaysia. After finishing her account, and Jing said to Lu Zhongtong, "My gun has already arrived. I need to adjust to the time difference right away. Don't waste the boring hours of the night." They also chose to leave at night. Their destination, Genting Casino, was located over 300 kilometers north of Singapore, in the central part of the Malay Peninsula, atop a mountain just dozens of kilometers northeast of the capital, Kuala Lumpur. The name Genting wasn't poetic, it was literal. The casino sat on the spine of the Titiwangsa Mountains, at an altitude of 1700 meters. Normally, sea clouds floated beneath it. When the weather turned poor, mist would swirl around the casino like a fairyland. As dawn broke, and Liang was jolted awake by commotion nearby. He opened his eyes to see Cuckoo sleeping on top of him, while Jing and Li Xiaoxin pressed together, peering out the bus window. The coach twisted and tilted along winding mountain roads. Outside, thick fog whipped past with the wind, parting occasionally to reveal sunlit green pastures, towering pagodas, and bottomless valleys. Even inside the air-conditioned cabin, birdsong could be heard. Still groggy, and Liang whispered, "Are we there yet?" Li Xiaoxin turned and blinked her big eyes at him, "Almost just half an hour more. Look, there are wild men down there." And Jing chimed in, Hey, and a whole pack of tigers too." And Liang squinted, then grumbled, "Oh, they're all fake sculptures." Soon after, the bus climbed above the cloud layer, and a golden ray of sunlight rose from the east. Passengers who had been dozing stirred awake, gazing with pilgrim-like reverence at the dreamlike rainbow-hued city floating above the sea of clouds. When the bus pulled up to the entrance of Genting Casino, An Lang saw 7 sprawling towers encircling a sunken area, with a swimming pool right at its center. The scale was staggering. It felt wrong to call it merely a casino. This was a full-fledged gambling city. Bathed in the glittering morning sun, every building and amusement ride looked unreal. The massive roller coaster and other attractions resembled Disneyland. Nothing about the exterior screamed casino, but to a Feng Shui master's eyes, nothing here was just for show. From any vantage point, one saw only sky, mountaintops, and clouds. Looking inward, however, every structure followed the layout of the 8 trigrams, aligned precisely with the dragon vein of the Titiwangsa Mountains, all facing downward toward Kuala Lumpur. Li Xiaoxin had booked them into the historic main building, the Genting Hotel. As An Liang looked up at the hotel entrance, he and Jing burst out laughing simultaneously. Jing chuckled, "Hey, this owner must be obsessed with money, even the front door is shaped like a tiger's claw. Winning here won't be easy." Li Xiaoxin added, "I heard Genting Casino was designed by many Feng Shui masters. The owner here is richer than any casino boss in Macau. And bigger than any casino in Macau too," An Liang said, glancing around. "It's much colder up here than down below. You should wear extra layers if you plan to go out." Once inside the hotel, An Liang kept complaining. The room was inconvenient, too cramped, and there were no slippers. But Li Xiaoxin told him this was actually the most spacious hotel in Genting. The newer hotels were cheaper but even worse, ceilings only 2 meters high, beds 60 centimeters apart, TVs mounted on top of wardrobes, and bathrooms smaller than 1 square meter. Rumor had it this design intentionally discouraged guests from staying in their rooms, pushing them instead toward the casino, amusement park, or shopping mall. After hearing this, An Liang and Jing exchanged stunned looks and immediately decided to make the best of it. At breakfast in the buffet restaurant, crowds were already surging. People lined up outside waiting for numbers, while Jing, who had arrived early and snagged a table, smirked with quiet satisfaction. "People pay to suffer here. If you don't win, you've really lost big." Li Xiaoxin said, "The suicide rate here is high. In the old days, so many people jumped after losing money that now all windows are sealed shut, leaving only a narrow slit. You can barely stick one arm out." An Liang tore at his bread calmly and said, "I didn't notice the windows, but from a Feng Shui perspective, the overall layout already violates the Guyang Sha, lonely young Sha Qi. Only someone exceptionally skilled could pull this off. His genius lies in redirecting the negative energy onto the guests, turning Sha Qi into wealth, a classic case of transforming Shinto prosperity. It's an extremely complex Feng Shui formation, clearly not the work of just one master." Jing nodded. The high suicide rate must be linked to Xingsha form Sha. That tiger claw entrance is downright malicious. Deliberately creating such a form Sha, if this weren't a casino, the Feng Shui master who designed it would go straight to hell. Staring out at the mountains, An Liang rested his chin in his hand and said, "There's a Cantonese saying, you can force rape, but you can't force gambling. No one can truly compel another to gamble. If someone pointed a gun at my head and made me bet, I'd rather they just robbed or kidnapped me. Truth is, those who lose do so because they can't resist temptation. What's there to complain about?" Li Xiaoxin laughed. "When I first suggested coming here, you jumped at the chance. Why not challenge the Feng Shui master who designed Genting Casino to a duel? I'd love to see that." "Stirring trouble again, such behavior isn't becoming for a young lady," An Liang chided, then turned to Jing. "But since we're here, we won't leave empty-handed. Remember what I told you last time about gambling principles? You can try them out here." Li Xiaoxin asked curiously, "Can a nun like Sister Jing really gamble?" And Jing instantly adopted a saintly tone. Nowhere in the Bible does it say gambling is forbidden. And Liang added dryly, nor does it say it's allowed. You studied Western literature, you should know that. We'll see how you win. Li Xiaoxin said with a teasing smile, her lips gently holding a grape as she watched En Liang with wide eyes. Back in their room, the three huddled around the computer, studying satellite images of Genting Casino. And Jing let out a soft gasp. We can't see anything, just clouds. And Liang zoomed in and out, rotated the image in every direction until Li Xiaoxin cried, I'm getting dizzy. Only then did he begin to speak. The central axis of the Malay Peninsula runs north to south along the Titiwangsa Mountains. At the Genting Highlands, the range forms a rounded, flat-topped peak, then curves downward toward the sea in a hook-like shape that loops back. Kuala Lumpur sits right inside that hook. This formation is called Huilong Guzu, returning dragon-embracing ancestors. But that's not our concern. We're focused on Genting itself. The Genting Highlands mark the entry point for Kuala Lumpur, the very origin of its Feng Shui hall, and thus govern the fate of the entire capital. And Jing checked on another computer and said, Genting Casino alone contributes about 5/1000 of Malaysia's total national tax revenue. That doesn't even include the other businesses under Genting Group, transportation, real estate, rubber power generation, and so on. It's an astonishing figure. From a Feng Shui perspective, that's entirely plausible, and it'll only keep rising. And Liang replied. He zoomed in on the satellite image to examine the mountain contours from the side, then pulled open the curtain to look outside. The Genting Highlands form a tiger-shaped configuration, charging straight down toward Kuala Lumpur from here. This grand layout is known as Fierce Tiger Descending the Mountain, which explains why the hotel entrance was designed to resemble a tiger's claw. But the finer details aren't visible on the satellite image. It's all obscured by clouds. Li Xiaoxian said, I bet the casino owner paid internet companies to blur this area. Otherwise, such a commercially thriving spot would definitely have clear high-resolution imagery. And Liang walked over to the window. That's possible, whether it's commercial secrets or Feng Shui secrets. Some discretion makes sense. But now that we're on site, those secrets won't stay hidden for long. The swimming pool right in the center of the casino complex. That's the dragon's lair. I'm certain that when this place was still wilderness, there used to be a small lake exactly where the pool is now. Look, the 7 towers encircle the pool, and the entire terrain slopes inward toward it. If it weren't a naturally formed lake, no Feng Shui master would dare dig an artificial pool this high up on a mountaintop. Forcing one into existence would sever the entire dragon vein, causing far more harm than good, and even endangering Kuala Lumpur below. Malaysian Feng Shui masters are skilled. They wouldn't make such a basic mistake. And Jing nodded. I understand this part too. It's a celestial lake, what we call water gathering at the celestial heart in Feng Shui. And with the surrounding buildings enclosing it, it's even better. As the saying goes, high water gates and strong barriers ensure lasting wealth and nobility, right? And Liang chuckled, looking at her. You only remember the simple rhymes. I have to memorize the Bible, she protested. My brain can't hold everything, I pick the short ones. They stepped out through the hotel's main entrance and found themselves in the middle of an amusement park. Each hotel stood upright like an open book, making the entire casino city resemble a chaotic stack of giant dictionaries standing on end. Li Xiaoxin turned to An Liang. I heard these hotels were built to look like books so guests would lose money here. Is that true in Feng Shui? An Liang shook his head. Buildings of this shape do gather wealth, but it has nothing to do with books. Angled structures are more stable architecturally, and placing the entrance at the inner corner acts like a satellite dish, better capturing auspicious energy. Also, having multiple flat surfaces allows the building to adapt when Feng Shui periods shift. When the prosperous direction changes, another facade can take over the flow of qi. That's the real reason. But that one's different. It's genuinely strange. Li Xiaoxin followed En Liang's pointing finger to the Genting Hotel, where they were staying. The main section rose over 10 stories high, splitting into 3 Y-shaped wings. Atop the central structure sat a small 3-story cylindrical tower, making the building resemble a stout liquor bottle when viewed head-on, but still like an upright open book from any side angle. It's not the tallest building, En Liang explained. But its foundation sits on the highest point of the entire mountaintop, the very first node of the incoming dragon vein. It anchors the whole casino complex. If I were the owner, I'd put the administrative offices there too. We already noticed, and Jing said. It's written right on the elevator buttons. This forms a Lucian star pattern, and Lang continued. Lucian is an inauspicious star, shaped like a claw swooping downward. He curled his fingers and thrust his hand toward the ground, mimicking a net cast from above. It tightly grips the entire dragon vein. The claw-shaped Lucian star belongs to the wood element like tangled tree roots. And that small cylindrical tower on top. Also wood-shaped like a tree trunk. So the entire Genting Hotel resembles a rooted tree stump planted firmly here. Moreover, it's positioned in the northeast sector of the casino. From there, across the swimming pool, you can see all the way to Kuala Lumpur. It claims the entire city below as its bright hall. This route controls not just Genting, but Kuala Lumpur too. And Jing's eyes widened. So if you control Kuala Lumpur, controlling the whole country isn't far off. Li Xiaoxin added, I've heard the owner is close friends with the Prime Minister. The government's given him tons of preferential policies. But does any of this affect our gambling plans? And Liang casually counted on his fingers. His expression relaxed. It does. Today is a once-in-a-century day for Genting Casino. We're currently in period 8 with the White Star in command, and the southwest is the wealth direction. The swimming pool to the southwest serves as the minor Bright Hall, Kuala Lumpur as the middle Bright Hall, and the Strait of Malacca as the grand Bright Hall. Revenue will keep climbing year after year, but excessive prosperity brings its own dangers. This year, the two great malevolent stars, 5 yellow and 2 black, converge precisely on the dragon's head in the northeast, the Luchan position. The old saying warns, when 2 and 5 meet, the master suffers loss. It seems the owner won't escape calamity this year. He glanced back at an Jing. Don't you think he might accidentally? And Jing quickly calculated on her fingers, then clasped her hands together over her chest and bowed her head. God bless him, he's already in heaven. Li Xiaoxian, confused, asked, what are you two talking about? Did you predict the owner's going to die this year? Yay, time to gamble at Genting Casino. And Jing's eyes sparkled with greed. She grabbed Li Xiaoxian's hand with one arm and hooked in Liang's with the other, dragging them both toward the Genting Hotel. Each hotel within the Genting Casino complex housed its own self-contained casino, complete with dining, entertainment, shopping, and gambling, all under one roof. The core building was no exception. Stepping inside felt like entering a world of garish extravagance. Beneath a vast, dimly lit dome, every beautiful and valuable object was piled together without order or taste. Along the entrance corridor, flickering lights danced over winding artificial streams dotted with tiny bridges and ornamental boats. Luxury boutiques lined both sides, displaying brand-name leather goods, watches and diamond jewelry at prices several times their market value, waiting for winners to buy their vanity. And Liang and Jing strolled slowly into the casino, feeling as if they'd returned to Chinatown. Over 90% of the people around them were Chinese, speaking a dozen different dialects, their voices blending with the cacophony of slot machines into a wall of noise. Everyone entering had to pass through airport-style security. No electronic devices or anything capable of recording audio or video were allowed inside. Guests dressed neatly. Casino rules required men to wear collared shirts and closed-toe shoes. Behind every gaming table, croupiers in crisp white shirts and bow ties, youthful and attractive, fluent in multiple languages, dealt cards and exchanged chips with swift, elegant motions. Their calculations of odds and payouts were equally fast and precise. Even without placing a bet, one could easily spend half a day just watching the croupiers perform, Red Dust said. Croupier is a casino term referring to the staff member who runs the gambling table. They walked straight in and past 3 large halls that looked much like any ordinary casino. But Li Xiaoxian led them to a special hall decorated like a Chinese imperial palace, the International Hall. Li Xiaoxian said, you need a VIP card to enter this hall, but foreign tourists visiting the casino for the first time can register their passports and go in. Want to play here? And Jing peeked inside and asked, what's different from the other halls? The coffee's better, and you can place both higher and lower bets. Perfect. And Liang said. He glanced at his wristwatch, a rugged field watch. Ever since Lu Zhongtang used a Luopan to detect the directional shift in the David Group's layout, and Liang had ordered a high-end military-style watch online. Its biggest advantage was the built-in compass on the strap, more than enough for a top-tier Feng Shui master like him to replace a Luopan. He stood directly facing the entrance of the International Hall, looked down at the compass on his watch, took 1 step forward, then 2 steps back. Raising his head, he said to the 2 women, today, host and guest switch roles. The unlucky boss meets the unlucky Alexander. The living will win over the dead. Let's go. It's time to win some money for the charity fund. Inside the International Hall, red bricks and green tiles gleamed under rows of bright red palace lanterns. The decor was far more opulent than in the other 3 halls. Tall, stunning female servers glided among the gamblers, all dressed in high-slit, form-fitting chapaos, so elegant they looked like runway models carrying trays. The hall was packed. Yet the atmosphere felt completely different from the outer halls. It wasn't noisy. Instead, an intense quiet hummed through the air. Stacks of chips towered like miniature mountains on the tables. Nearly all the gamblers were East Asian, almost certainly ethnic Chinese. Most wore tailored suits and flashy jewelry, their faces etched with shrewd calculation regardless of age. When handling cards, they kept their eyes half-lidded, calm and arrogant, slowly peeling open a tiny gap to glance at their hand before coolly pushing out a stack of chips with disdain. And Liang scanned the room. Among the sea of dark heads, one stood out, a young man with deep brown hair, dressed in a white shirt, black-rimmed square glasses perched on his nose. He leaned forward with both elbows on a blackjack table, hands clasped over his mouth. His expression matched the others' calculated calm, but his eyes were different. Sharp as a fox's, they locked onto the cards with precision. His whole body arched forward like a wolf about to pounce, radiating focus and accuracy from behind. Before him stood a wall of chips, all silver with gold edges, each worth 1 ringgit. And Liang estimated he had around 100 ringgit in front of him. Red Dust said, ringgit is Malaysia's currency. On the day Liang visited the casino, the exchange rate was approximately 3.50 ringgit to $1. And Liang tugged gently on Jing's nun's robe. She turned, spotted the white man and burst into laughter. And Liang joined her, both grinning at Li Xiaoxian. Li Xiaoxian stood with arms crossed, giving Liang a calm yet knowing sideways smile as if to say, dare you try? The young white man was strikingly handsome, with prominent brow and cheekbones that gave his face a lean, masculine sharpness. He was none other than Matvei, the geologist Liang had met in Lian Valley. Beside Matvei sat 3 Chinese men. One had just lost everything and slumped away in defeat, another doubled down recklessly. Matvei had just won a hand. He neatly arranged the 510 ringgit chips the croupier pushed toward him but left his original stake on the table, merely nodding for the dealer to deal again. And Liang circled behind the croupier, now directly facing Matvey, who remained hunched over, hands covering his face. In seconds, Matvey won another round. 5 more 10 ringgit chips slid toward him. And Liang stuffed one hand in his pocket and raised the other, forming a finger gun aimed at Matvey, sensing someone watching him. He lifted his eyes and saw 3 people staring oddly from behind the croupier. One was a long-haired beauty in a pale yellow dress, Li Xiaoxian, secretary at David Group headquarters, who occasionally delivered confidential documents in person. Next to her stood a doll-faced Chinese girl in a green-trimmed white nun's habit, cinched tightly at the waist by a wide belt. Her face looked familiar. She was the female thief who'd raided Lian Valley at night. He'd seen her on surveillance footage. Between them stood a Eurasian-looking young man with dark brown hair, casually making a mocking gesture. He winked one eye and mimed shooting a pistol at himself, even adding a little recoil jerk. This must be Lang, the Feng Shui master Danny had mentioned. He'd even shaved off that little goatee, smooth, disgustingly smooth. Matvey frowned slightly. Unwilling to make eye contact with such a clown. He focused back on his cards, but couldn't help glancing up again to see what Lang and his group were doing. When he looked, Lang was twirling 710 ringgit chips between his fingers, like a magician showing off sleight of hand, then dramatically presented them toward him. Sister Jing posed beside him like a magician's assistant, half squatting sideways, hips tilted, flashing an innocent sweet smile that clashed deliciously with her solemn nun's attire. Li Xiaoxian, though curvaceous and demure, simply covered her mouth while giggling, yet together their provocation was overwhelming. Matvey felt a surge of irritation and shook his head almost imperceptibly, filled with disdain and helpless annoyance. He understood exactly what Lang was challenging. That look said clearly, "I know you're not gambling, you're counting cards." Card counting in blackjack was a legitimate form of advantage play, using math and memory to track dealt cards. It required exceptional mental agility. Those 7 chips in Liang's hand were his entire stake. He was declaring, "You don't need a mountain of chips to win big. 7 are enough." Matvey's concentration wavered. He didn't know what trick Liang planned to pull. Casinos knew skilled mathematicians could beat blackjack through counting. It was legal, yet deeply unwelcome. Once detected, counters were immediately ejected and blacklisted. That's why Matvey avoided sudden bet swings. He only aimed to win 200 ringgit before retreating to his room. But Liang's appearance lit a fire in him. Matvey had always been fiercely competitive. He wondered if Liang could actually win and hated the thought of him winning faster and bigger. After a moment's thought, he increased his next bet to 10 chips. And Liang walked to the exact center of the international hall, surrounded by rows of gaming tables that appeared utterly chaotic and directionless. He pulled out his phone, no signal of course, and the satellite-based electronic Lopan app was useless. Clearly buying that compass wristwatch earlier that day had been a wise move. And Jing leaned in and asked, "Well, where do we start?" The main entrance of the international hall faces east. And Liang said, rotating himself toward the northeast according to his compass. According to the Longmen A configurations, the guest position lies in the northeast. He looked up and saw 7 baccarat tables in that direction. Li Xiaoxian also peeked at the compass on his watch and asked, "Excuse me, what exactly is the guest position?" "Jing, you explain it to her. I'm busy," Lang replied, already scanning the croupiers at each table. His eyes landed on a handsome young man. He pointed at him, and from across the room the croupier smiled back, with a swagger and a wicked grin, and Lang strutted over like a playboy, and Jing and Li Xiaoxian followed behind. And Jing explained, "In most Feng Shui layouts, the host position takes precedence. All auspicious qi flows to the master, but if you can identify the guest position within the layout, you reverse the roles. Suddenly, the guest becomes the priority, and all the auspicious energy favors the visitor first." And Lang plopped down at the table and immediately turned to a burly man beside him. "What were the last 3 outcomes?" The big man shouted back in Zhejiang dialect. "Player, banker, banker. Thanks, I'll watch 1 round first." And Liang placed 7 chips, pathetically few, on the table, and watched the croupier with keen interest. Baccarat is known as the fairest casino game. Players never touch the cards. The croupier deals 2 cards each to the banker and player positions. The total value is calculated by adding the 2 cards and taking the last digit 9 being the highest. Aces, kings, queens, jacks and tens all count as 0. Players can bet on the banker winning, the player winning, or a tie. If they correctly predict a tie, the payout is 1/8. The croupier smoothly dealt the cards and announced another banker win. As soon as the payouts were settled, Liang immediately placed 1 chip on the player's side for the next round. He huddled close with Jing and Li Xiaoxian and began murmuring like he was chanting a spell. This whole northeast sector has the best qi, and this handsome guy here is the peak of it. Since the croupier's income isn't tied to whether players win or lose, their personal fortune isn't affected by the table's luck. But if players win, they often tip them. So if his aura looks strong, it means he's getting tips, which means we're about to win. When we do, we'll give him a big one. Just then, the croupier called out, "Banker 8, player 6, banker wins." And Liang turned around to find his 10 ringgit chip already swept away. He glared furiously, but the croupier only returned a polite smile. Snarling, and Liang slammed 2 more chips onto the player spot. He turned back to the 2 women and muttered again, "My strategy is called progressive betting. In theory, if I keep doubling down, I'll eventually win. And this guy's aura is so strong, I'll win it all back right now. Before he could finish, the croupier announced loudly, Banker 9, Player 5, Banker wins. Both of Liang's chips vanished instantly. No way. Humiliated in front of the girls, his pride shattered. Rage surged through him. He slapped his last 4 chips onto the player position. I don't believe this. I'm winning this round. Deal it. Deal it. Banker 7, Player 7, it's a tie. Devastating. And Liang wailed, collapsing backward into Li Shaoxin's arms. The burly man beside him cheered. I hit the tie, 1/8 payout. Ha, I'm rich now. He'd stacked a pile of chips on the tie. The croupier prepared to pay him 8 times that amount. Overjoyed. The man didn't even count. He just swept the winnings toward himself and immediately tossed 1 chip to the croupier as a tip. The croupier gently pushed it back and said, as politely and gracefully as before, Sir, casino policy prohibits us from accepting tips. Good luck. And Lang's eyes widened. He realized he'd been tricked. Slapping the table, he yelled, Shit, and stormed back to the center of the hall, hands on hips glaring at Matvei. Matvei glanced back at him, wearing a mocking smirk. And Jing and Li Xiaoxin approached, but Lang waved them off. Don't comfort me. I know what went wrong. They don't rely on tips at all. Now I need to find the unluckiest guy among those tables. Still in the northeast baccarat section, but now at a different table, and Lang sat down opposite a pale-faced, expressionless female croupier. She was petite, with small hands, looking like a lamb about to be torn apart amidst the crowd of male gamblers. He began muttering again. Look at her worried brows, peach blossom eyes, pale skin, red nose. Her boyfriend must have stolen all her money. She's here today just to drain Genting Casino's fortune. Combined with our unbeatable Longman 8 configurations, we're guaranteed to win. But to be safe, Sister Jing, cast a quick Yi Jing hexagram for me, fast. And Jing immediately performed her signature technique, counted on her fingers and declared instantly, Mountain over heaven, great accumulation, changing to earth over heaven, peace, excellent omen, God bless us, we're winning this time. 5,000 ringgit. And Liang bought 5 large denomination chips from the girl and swiftly placed them all on player. Each Yi Jing hexagram consists of 6 lines, representing 6 stages of development. Each line is either a solid yang line or a broken yin line. The great accumulation hexagram and Jing divined signifies great harvest and abundance. Reading from the bottom up, its lines were yang 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 yin yin yang. And Liang followed this auspicious pattern precisely in his betting sequence. In Feng Shui, the most fundamental distinction is between yin and yang, stillness and movement. In metaphysics, stillness represents the interior, the host, movement represents the exterior, the guest. In a casino, every croupier occupies a static position, no one walks through their space, and spectators shouldn't loiter behind them. Conversely, player seats are dynamic, constantly changing occupants, crowds gathering behind, thus the guest position is yang and active, and Liang grasped these principles perfectly. Starting from the first round, he alternated his bets according to the hexagram's pattern. Player, 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 banker, banker, 5,000 became 10,000, 10,000 became 20, then 40, then 80. By the 5th round, he had a towering stack of 160 ringgit in chips before him. More and more gamblers gathered behind him, cheering louder with each win. The crowd grew as excited as Liang himself, and Jing and Li Xiaoxin jumped up and down, screaming and hugging each other. Even Matvei turned to see what all the commotion was about at the baccarat tables, but all he saw was a sea of heads, with no clue who was actually winning. At the end of the 5th round, and Liang handed 8,000 ringgit to Li Xiaoxin and Jing to hold. This was their real profit. The remaining 8,000 ringgit, and Liang intended to use for a perfect finale. In gambling, prolonged play inevitably leads to loss. Winning 5 rounds in a row already made and Liang very happy. For the 6th round, he had resolved to give back these 8,000 ringgit to the casino, win or lose. This would be his last bet. The core principle of the Zhou Yi lies in change. Bian constant transformation, for change itself is the only eternal truth in this world. In the Da Shu hexagram that Anjing calculated, the topmost 6th line transformed from yang to yin, turning Da Shu into Tai. This changing 6th line was the heart of the entire hexagram, and within this very shift lay the answer to how to win the 6th round. Yin represented the banker, yang the player. A change from yang to yin signified harmony between yin and yang, a he Tai omen. Moreover, the Tai hexagram was among the most harmonious of all 64 hexagrams. And Liang made up his mind. Without hesitation, he pushed the 8,000 ringgit onto the Tai betting circle. A gasp rippled through the crowd of onlookers. In baccarat, only point values from 2 to 9 exist. 8 possible card combinations. Thus, the chance of a tie was merely 1 in 8. Though a correct tie bet paid 8 times the stake, wagering 8,000 ringgit on such odds stunned the tourists. They marveled at how Liang treated money like dirt, holding their breath in anticipation. In the dead silence, the beautiful croupier delicately flipped over the final card with her small hand. Sure enough, the banker showed 8 points, and the player also had 8 tie. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers, and Liang spun around, lifted Jing into the air, twirling her several times, then warmly embraced Li Xiaoxin and planted a quick kiss on her cheek amid the chaos. Li Xiaoxin didn't pull away. She closed her eyes blissfully. They spent a long time counting and dividing their winnings at the baccarat table. Li Xiaoxin asked a staff member for a large basket and filled it with 700,000 ringgit in chips. Together they walked over to where Matvei stood. They found Matvey slumped in frustration, chin resting in his palm, with about 200,000 ringgit in chips before him. And Liang bit back laughter, his face flushed like a stewed tomato, shoulders shaking as he sat down beside Matvey. He glanced sideways at him and said flippantly, "Winner, winner, chicken dinner, ha 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 ha." This was a popular gambler's saying in Las Vegas, expressing hope before victory, celebration after, and even deep gambling philosophy, but now spoken by An Liang, the victor, directly to Matvey, it carried a bitter sting. Especially with that grating laughter that felt like mockery. An Liang knew exactly what he was doing. His predecessors had long developed a method for analyzing Western facial features, internationalizing Chinese physiognomy. From video footage, he had carefully studied Matvey's face, a resolute, rational type, logical, calm, driven by challenge, yet lacking empathy and overly proud. And Liang understood that as long as he remained involved, a direct confrontation with Matvey was inevitable. He'd already devised a strategy, only waiting for the right moment. Now was the perfect opportunity. He'd use provocation to ensure Matvey remembered him for the rest of his life. Matvey turned sharply toward An Liang, his face pale. "You're just lucky. Is this the power of a Chinese Feng Shui master?" His tone remained dismissive. Only An Liang understood what he truly scorned. To an ultra-rational scientist, luck was contemptible. Anyone who won by luck was, in their eyes, a fool, because luck was merely random chance with improbability. You might win big with good luck today, but lose everything tomorrow with bad luck. "I understand," Lu Zhongtang replied, greatly satisfying An Jing. "I'll also head to Kuba Town to meet you. We'll stay in touch by phone." After a half-day journey on a long-distance bus, An Jing descended from Genting Casino and traveled over 60 kilometers to Kuba Town. She hadn't felt this way earlier, sleeping the whole ride from Singapore into Malaysia, nor upon arriving at Genting Casino, which sat above the clouds. But now on solid ground, the sky poured rain without end. November had brought Malaysia's rainy season. An Jing stepped off the bus under an umbrella. Her first instinct to turn back and get on the next bus home. She held a folding umbrella, a backpack on her shoulders and Cuckoo, the little dog tethered to her hand. Her clothes and shoes below the waist were soaked through. Cuckoo's fur clung wetly to his tiny body, making him look pitifully thin. A sudden overwhelming sense of isolation and helplessness surged within her. She nearly burst into tears. Drenched like a drowned chicken, An Jing dashed into Kuba Town through the downpour. All the shops were shuttered. Few people walked the streets. The occasional farmer who appeared spoke no English. She walked for a while but saw no Chinese faces, found no open guest houses, even those with signs were locked tight. As dusk deepened, if she couldn't find shelter soon, she and Cuckoo would have to sleep on the street. She felt utterly wretched. Why on earth was she standing in the rain so far from home? She called Lu Zhongtang, but he said he was still en route and wouldn't arrive for several hours. He urged her to find lodging quickly. That made her feel even more miserable. Wasn't she calling precisely because she couldn't find a place? But children of metaphysical lineages never truly hit dead ends. She found a corner under a roof overhang, prayed earnestly to God for guidance, then pulled out her compass to cast a directional hexagram. It revealed the direction of a guest house. Filled with divine confidence, she sprinted deeper into Kuba Town. Kuba Town nestled at the foot of vast mountain ranges. In the torrential rain, An Jing had no energy to analyze the landforms. She knew rain clouds blanketed the slopes anyway, nothing visible even if she tried. Better to conserve her strength, yet deeper into town. Still no guest house appeared. Doubt crept in. Could God really be playing such a cruel joke on her? Her divination wasn't infallible, but it was usually reliable, certainly not so wildly off during a crisis like this. The streets were lined with low, modern houses, each spacious and equipped with a private car. Having spent her days in Genting Casino since arriving in Malaysia, An Jing had never entered a residential area. The sight surprised her. She'd assumed Malaysia was a developing country, but clearly, local living standards were quite high. Ahead stood a large house, brightly lit and filled with the buzz of lively voices. An Jing quickened her pace. The building wasn't tall, but it had a massive parking lot like a commercial establishment. Cars packed the lot, and inside it sounded like a gathering was underway. There was no aroma of food or music from outside. An Jing's stomach growled loudly, and seeing signs of human presence at last, she hurried straight in. The front door stood wide open. Inside was a hall so vast it didn't resemble a private home at all, but rather a public meeting room. In the center sat a circle of sofas, completely occupied. Around them, men and women crowded tightly together, all dressed in traditional Malaysian attire. Every woman wore a headscarf and a light-colored robe, the classic Muslim look strikingly similar to An Jing's white nun's habit. She blended right in as she stepped inside. At the heart of the group, a tall, dark-skinned middle-aged man spoke with sharp, forceful energy. He wore a songkok on his head, a shirt on top, and a sarong wrapped around his waist, typical Malay dress. Since he spoke in Malay, An Jing couldn't understand a word. Not that it mattered. She turned to the women nearby and began asking in English where she could find a place to stay. The women seemed not to understand English and just stared at her. Soon, she caught the attention of the man on the sofa. The speaker suddenly called out loudly in English, "What are you doing? Who are you?" Relieved to hear English, An Jing instantly perked up, put on her most angelic expression, and walked briskly to the center of the hall. "God bless you, kind sir. My name is An Jing, and this is Coco. Coco, say hello to this gentleman." Coco obediently stood up, pressed its front paws together, bowed toward the man, then spun in a full circle, offering a grand bow to everyone around. The crowd burst into laughter, and Jing laughed along. Sometimes a dog breaks language barriers better than people ever could. She noticed Mayor Abdullah had thick lips and a broad forehead. Classic signs of a kind-hearted, honest man who wasn't good with words. With someone like him, speaking truthfully was safe, so she said, "I'm a nun from the Holy Spirit Convent in New York State, USA. I just arrived today. My brother arranged to meet me here, so I'm looking for a place to stay. I'm Abdullah, the town mayor. Malaysia's rainy season runs from late year to early year. No tourists come here. It's not a place for visitors. You should go back." I thought the same. And Jing replied, "But I need to wait for my brother. Could you tell me where I might stay? It's already dark. Innkeepers won't be open for business. If you're only staying one night, you can stay at my place, but you must leave tomorrow morning." And Jing beamed. "That's wonderful. Thank you so much." She looked up at Mayor Abdullah with pleading eyes, pure and impossible to refuse. He hesitated slightly and said, "I only have one guest room left. If you're comfortable with it, your friend may stay too. But again, you both must leave tomorrow." And Jing raised an eyebrow. This was unexpected. Still, in hard times, shelter was shelter. She accepted without hesitation. Soon a servant came to escort her to the guest room. And Jing felt Mayor Abdullah was decisive, yet his hospitality wasn't purely out of kindness. After swiftly settling her in, he immediately returned to his speech as if nothing had happened. Without even changing clothes, and Jing called Liu Zhongtang right away and gave him the mayor's address. After washing up, changing, and finishing her banana leaf rice meal, her phone rang. Liu Zhongtang had already arrived at Mayor Abdullah's doorstep, two unmarried people sharing one room, and Jing needed to explain to the mayor that Liu Zhongtang was a fellow member of her convent. She rushed out of the hall. The meeting was still ongoing, but Jing saw Mayor Abdullah, a tall man, and another tall Chinese-Malaysian man clasping hands warmly, rubbing their palms together continuously. She knew this was the traditional Malaysian greeting, equivalent to a Western handshake, except after rubbing palms each would touch their right hand to their heart. But these two kept holding on far too long, chattering away in English without letting go, and Jing got goosebumps. Worse still, the Chinese-Malaysian man had phoenix eyes, silkworm eyebrows and a smooth, clean-shaven face, dressed in a crisp shirt and slacks, with his square, dignified jawline. It was unmistakably Liu Zhongtang, freshly shaved of his once full beard. Liu Zhongtang was also completely soaked, but ember droplets clung to his sun-bronzed skin, giving off a potent masculine aura. When he saw Jing enter the hall, he grabbed Mayor Abdullah's hand and introduced her. "This is Sister Jing. She in the Holy Spirit Convent. She belongs to train stray dogs to help rehabilitate prisoners and reintegrate them into society. Truly sacred work." Abdullah chuckled warmly and gave Jing a slight bow, his demeanor now entirely different from before. "Did you shave your beard in Singapore too?" And Jing couldn't think of anything else to say. She was fixated on his once mighty Zhongfei-style beard. Liu Zhongtang laughed heartily. "Keeping a beard in Singapore really got in the way. My local brothers advised me to shave it off. Sister Jing, it's so good to see you. Hey, where's Cuckoo?" "Cuckoo just ate biryani mixed with dog food and is resting in the room. You two know each other?" And Jing's face broke into a puzzled smile. Abdullah stood as tall and broad as Liu Zhongtang. Side by side, they looked like brothers from different ethnicities. Turning to Jing, Abdullah said, "Brother Liu understands Chinese Feng Shui. He's willing to help us resolve the issue on the mountain." Liu Zhongtang added, "I know a bit of Malay. I heard Mayor Abdullah mention the dam situation up in the mountains, and I'd like to study it with him." "No need to study anything, it's all baseless to begin with." An elderly voice cut in from the other side of the sofa. Everyone turned to see Rahman, the former mayor of Kuba Town, a man in his 60s, frowning impatiently as he spoke in English. "Abdullah, that dam project was approved by the state years ago. The salinization of farmland downstream could very well be due to excessive fertilizer use. Whether the dam caused it or not requires investigation by agricultural experts. I've said this many times, we have no official report yet, so we can't draw conclusions. Now you want everyone to go up the mountain and sabotage infrastructure? That's dangerous for the villagers and could land you in prison. I'm against it." Abdullah stepped forward. Aziz just graduated from university. He majored in geology. Isn't his opinion expert enough? The two mayors, one current, one former, launched into a heated debate. From their exchange, Jing and Liu Zhongtang pieced together the conflict. Kuba Town faced a vast plain that stretched to the sea behind it. Rose the Titiwangsa Mountains, from which two rivers flowed down in a Y shape, merging halfway into a large lake before continuing through Kuba, irrigating its fertile fields for centuries. 8 years ago, the state government approved a project to build a massive dam at the lake's outlet, aiming to regulate irrigation and supplement electricity supply. Our town's power capacity was already more than sufficient 10 years ago and budgeted to support at least 20 years of growth. Abdullah challenged. "You were mayor then. You knew those numbers well." Rahman shot back. "The state has long-term development plans, publicly announced documents. As mayor, I had to consider not just the town's interests but also the state's position," and Jing realized from their words that Rahman had been mayor when the dam was approved. Despite warnings from local geology experts, he hadn't fought to halt construction. During building, the company blasted mountains, quarried stone and carved roads, filling the air with dust and chaos. Water downstream dwindled, sparking endless complaints from residents, but all fell on deaf ears. 5 years after completion, every warning from the geologists came true. Silt built up at the reservoir's inlet, forming a delta that drastically reduced storage capacity and disrupted flood control rhythms. Mountain soil that once replenished farmland stopped flowing down, leaving fields increasingly barren. Farmers responded by dumping more fertilizer. Reduced water flow also failed to flush salt from coastal fields. Continuous irrigation raised groundwater levels, drawing deep-seated salts to the surface. Both water and soil quality in Cuba deteriorated rapidly. A woman complained, in recent years, "Seaward channels are choked with weeds. We can't even drink the river water anymore. Kids don't swim in it like they used to." A slender Malay youth stepped forward. "Enough. This is exactly what the dam caused. Less upstream flow means worse downstream water quality. Algae and weeds explode, clogging the estuary. If this continues, we'll be forced to drink salty groundwater, and it's already contaminated." Back at the Genting Casino's International Hall, An Liang pulled out a chair and gestured for Li Xiaoxian to sit beside Matvei, sliding 15 Malaysian ringgit toward her. Matvei took this as utter disrespect, bringing in another girl to gamble, and increasing the stake. As both a mathematician and a man, he should have refused immediately, but as a gentleman, rejecting a lady so bluntly would shame him. Torn inside yet showing no weakness, he instantly pushed forward another 10 ringgit. Even if Li Xiaoxian won alongside him, he'd still net more. Bet sizing was the pinnacle of gambling strategy, a meticulously engineered system. Doubling his bet to 20 ringgit shattered his own plan. But An Liang had just clawed back 700 ringgit in minutes, leaving Matvei seething. He couldn't stomach losing to some thuggish cheat. Just as the croupier opened his mouth to call no more bets, An Liang slipped a chip into An Jing's hand and declared, "I've changed my mind. I'm betting 1,000. Snap. He placed a chip before himself. Snap. And Jing followed suit. To prove God is everywhere. Heh heh, amen. Matvei's head buzzed violently. Outrageous, pure thuggery. He'd calculated odds based on exact player count. Now 2 extra hands threw the entire card sequence into chaos. Together, An Liang's group had wagered 17 ringgit. If they all lost, Matvei would still lose 3 more than them. He glared at An Liang in furious helplessness. An Liang rolled his eyes and grinned wickedly. Li Xiaoxian covered her mouth, laughing until she nearly toppled over. And Jing sat at the table with her eyes closed, praying devoutly, "Whoever does not test the Lord shall find him. To those who remain faithful to the Lord he will reveal himself." Crooked thoughts lead one away from God. Fools who test the Almighty only bring shame upon themselves. Though these were wise words from the Bible to Matvei, they sounded suspiciously like veiled insults. Just then, he heard An Jing say, "Oh, I'll split my hand." Matvei turned to look and saw An Jing peeking open one eye, glancing at her 2 tens, then splitting the pair and adding another chip. This move effectively inserted an extra player mid-game, throwing Matvei's carefully calculated card sequence into complete chaos. He could no longer control the game. Folding his arms, he leaned back in his chair and watched coldly from a distance as the croupier dealt the cards, waiting for fate to decide the outcome. And Liang leaned over the table toward Matvei and said with a chuckle, "Hey buddy, are you really waiting for fate to decide?" Hehehe. The results came quickly. Aside from An Jing, who won 2,000 ringgit, everyone else lost badly. The final tally was clear. Matvei lost 20,000, and Liang lost 16,000. But technically, An Liang had won by a narrow margin. Furious, Matvei refused to stay near An Liang any longer. As An Jing sang hymns praising God, he slammed his hand on the table, gathered his money, and stormed off. An Liang handed his chips to An Jing to cash in slowly, then hurried after Matvei. At the entrance of Genting Hotel, An Liang called out loudly, "Dr. Matvei, please wait. Can we grab a coffee? My treat." Hearing such polite words softened Matvei's mood slightly. He stopped and asked An Liang, "What do you want?" "I saw the big screen in your lab. I'm genuinely curious about and respectful of your research project. Could you tell me something about it?" Upon hearing this, Matvei immediately walked out through the hotel doors. To An Liang following beside him, he said, "I can't tell you anything. It's a trade secret. When I started this project, I signed a contract with David Group. For the first 10 years after successful development, all patents and usage rights belong solely to the company. No matter how they use it or who they partner with, I have no right to interfere. If you really want to know, go ask Danny. I won't tell you." An Liang quickened his pace behind Matvei, dodging the crowded pedestrians as he spoke. "But your project is related to Feng Shui. I saw your control room. It had a world map showing nothing but dragon veins and dragon points from Feng Shui theory. I promise I won't use what I know for commercial purposes. I have zero interest in Chinese witchcraft. I'm a geological researcher. What else would I look at if not maps?" "No, wait. Dr. Matvei, your research might be connected to David's death." They had reached a small outdoor kiosk. Families with children were playing nearby. Matvei stopped in the middle of the path and said, "Consultant, David's death is tied to everything. Money, women, power struggles, political conspiracies, but none of it concerns me. I signed the contract with David personally, but legally my agreement is with David Group. I only care about what's written in that contract. The rest is none of my business." After saying this, Matvei started walking again. And Liang persisted, chasing after him. "Dr. Matvei, we've had some misunderstandings. I didn't break into Split Rock Valley to steal trade secrets. I just wanted to uncover the truth behind David's death. He was my friend. I can't let him die without answers. But now I'm caught in a bigger and bigger whirlpool. Someone led me here. Along the way, I coincidentally met Danny in Singapore, and now I coincidentally meet you in Malaysia. I feel like someone's pulling my strings, and you're being watched too. We're both being controlled by the same person. The person tracking me, isn't that you? And Liang rushed forward and grabbed Matvey's arm. No. I was brought here. I didn't follow you. It's no coincidence that Danny was in Singapore and you're in Malaysia. At least tell me why you're here, please. Matvey paused and looked straight into An Liang's eyes. After a moment, he said, Why should I tell you? Do you also want to know how David died? Matvey didn't answer. He just kept staring silently at An Liang. Don't you want to know who's tracking you? An Liang held his gaze, but Matvey looked utterly indifferent. An Liang added, Fine, I can locate the red lines and red dots on your map without any instruments, using Chinese Feng Shui. For example, this swimming pool right here is a red dot. Seeing hesitation flicker across Matvey's face, An Liang pressed on. We might be studying the same thing, and my method is cheaper and faster. Matvey thought for a second, then pulled out a notebook and began writing. I'm here to run field tests for my research project. Here's my phone number and email. He tore out the page and handed it to An Liang. Don't follow me anymore, and don't even think about sabotaging my tests. If you do, I'll kill you. An Liang took the note and immediately asked, What kind of tests? Who chose the location? Why Malaysia? Matvey shoved An Liang hard. Stop right there. Don't harass me again. If you do, I'll call the police. I'm returning to the US in a few months. Contact me then. The rough physical push made it clear Matvey was truly furious. And Liang didn't chase after him this time. Watching Matvey's retreating back, he dialed Daniel's number. Dada, how are you? I'm in Malaysia. I'm fine. Got a job for you. Look up this phone number. Pull everything you can. Owner info, bank accounts, the works. Send it all to my phone. And set up global tracking on this number. He read out the number from Matvey's note, then added, I need to know where this phone goes every single day. Okay, I know Amy misses me. She keeps wanting to marry me. I'll send her my regards. What? The pound just hit 110? That's a 5-fold increase. Oh, God is so good to me, huh? You want to talk profit split now? 50-50, that's the max. After hanging up, An Liang muttered to himself, Now I finally get why in movies, the black guy always dies first. As An Liang returned to the Tiger Claw entrance of Genting Hotel and was about to head back to his room, 3 security guards in suits approached from the adjacent cafe. The leader said politely, Mr. An, our boss would like a word with you. Do you have a moment this way, please? Without waiting for a reply, the 2 burly men flanked An Liang, one on each side, and escorted him forcefully into a staff elevator hidden behind a corridor. And Liang didn't resist. He had no idea how many more days he'd be stuck here. And antagonizing the casino would do him no good at all. He let himself be escorted along, asking as they walked, Are you gentlemen security officers? Are you looking for cheaters? I didn't cheat, I swear. But if you really want to catch one, I know someone who does. I can take you to him right now. Red Dust note, cheater refers to someone who cheats at gambling. Broadly, it also means any kind of con artist. The lead security officer replied, We're from technical security. We just need to have a little chat with you, Mr. An. You'll understand soon enough. The elevator descended 3 floors. After passing through several automatic glass doors, An Liang found himself in a massive casino surveillance center. The circular hall was filled with monitors, screens everywhere, each paired with computers and keyboards below. Dozens of staff members were busy watching every gambler in the casino. A well-dressed man in his 60s, smiling warmly, approached An Liang. He had a round head, sparse hair, and a plump, jovial face that reminded An Liang of a gluttonous monk. He shook An Liang's hand and introduced himself. My name is Lim Sihui. I'm a Malaysian Chinese. I just watched your incredible winning streak at the tables, so I reviewed the footage from when you entered the casino and even looked up your room registration. Please come this way, let's talk inside. Lim Sihui dismissed the security officers and led An Liang into a small office. Through the large glass window they could see the entire surveillance center. After gesturing for An Liang to sit, Lim Sihui eagerly prepared a cup of tea. An Liang noticed a full set of Gongfu teaware on the table and asked,